We now begin our first session of the day, Leadership Perspectives, Navigating an Evolving Industry and World, moderated by Anita Brikman, President and CEO of PPTA. Speakers include David Bell, Chief Corporate Affairs and Legal Officer from Grifols, Margaret Drysdale, PDT Regional Commercial Strategy Head from Takeda, and Ugo Di Francesco, Chief Executive Officer from Kedrion.
Is my now my microphone's on. Good morning. Thank you all for being here and joining us bright and early. Before we get started, a reminder that we're going to utilize the technology in our app this morning. So if you have questions for our esteemed panelists, please type them into the app, and we will try to get to as many questions as possible after we have our discussion here. With me this morning, Dave Bell, who can only be described as an industry titan. Dave also represents Grifols on the Global Executive Board. We have Ugo Di Francesco, Kedrion CEO, who will share more about the exciting evolution of Kedrion, and Margaret Drysdale, Takeda's head of commercial strategy for the region, who's going to offer us some unique perspectives on how you take a global strategy, apply it at the regional level, and also how we can best make our case and increase understanding with policymakers wherever they may be. So let's get right to the first question that is for all of you. The theme of this year's Congress centers around our unique global supply chain and frankly what we need to do to protect it. In light of the volatile geopolitical climate that we spoke about yesterday, how do we mitigate challenges and also identify opportunities that might be ahead of us given the environment? Ugo, let's start with you, please.
Thanks, Anita, and good morning, everyone. And to some extent, I have the privilege and also the uniqueness to be a senior and a junior at the same time in this industry. A senior because I have more than 35 years of experience in life science, in pharmaceutical, but I joined the plasma industry only a few years ago, a couple of years ago, so I'm in 3rd year, so I'm still in a sort of fresh mindset in our industry. So it's true, today in our common language, we say that uncertainty and volatility is the new normal. Mm-hmm. And of course, we are today pretty much affected by the rumors and all the volatility which is driven by potential risk of tariffs or trade barriers, which could limit increasing the cost, first of all, and of course limiting the access to patients, which is the most important point. But again, what I've learned in these first years is that in any case, volatility is not something which is completely new in our industry. We had, if I go back and studying a bit the history of our industry, we had cyclical shortages of plasma time to time. Mm-hmm. There are regulatory differences across different geographies which are limiting the access also to patients of our therapies in our area. And we have also the example of COVID. That's right. Because now we forgot, but we started to say the new normal was after COVID 2 years ago. So again, in our industry, we faced already in the past other period of time where there was an increasing volatility and uncertainty. And I believe that this industry proved really to be very resilient on it. And here are the potential way also to mitigate the risks and to go for unique. One is really to capitalize on the uniqueness of our global value chain, which is really unique and it is really different. And this is another concept that I would like them to stress also maybe during today, that we are different in many ways from other areas or in life science. And the second is, there is a growing demand for our therapies. Our products, it came out very clearly also by the video before, are saving lives. And in many cases, they are treating rare conditions, rare diseases. When we talk about rare diseases or life-saving drugs, it's not a matter of high-margin products. But what really makes the difference is that there is a requirement to have a very complex and interconnected supply chain. And everything has to be driven by science, not by the different elements, and not by high margin. And basically, policy stability, international cooperation are really the key elements in order to focus on it. And I believe that this is an area where really we can capitalize on it. We are providing life-saving drugs, and we are treating in most of the cases rare and ultra-rare conditions. And between one patient and 1 million patients for other therapy, it doesn't make a difference. For us, even one single patient deserves to be treated and to receive the right product in order to save his or her life. And this is something that we have to be proud, and we have to keep it in our mind, and we have to make every effort to make it clear every day to all the stakeholders, to policymakers, to governments, and all the people who are involved in addressing the challenges which are driven in our industry.
Couldn't agree more. Dave, your thoughts? Challenges out there ahead of us. What do we do?
Well, first of all, I have to thank you for that introduction. My wife will get quite a kick out of it when I tell her about it. We heard yesterday from Paul Rosenthal and others about some of the challenges that we face on a global and geopolitical basis. And frankly, I don't think there's anybody but maybe one person, if he knows what he's doing, as to what the ultimate goal is and how we're going to get there. The problem with all of that means that we're working with the unknown. And there's not much you can do except plan, and plan for worst case and everything that goes along with that to ensure that we have the ability to deliver access to as many patients in the world. And that is our goal at PPTA, to ensure that there is knowledge, that there is availability of product, so that patients all over the world can access these life-saving medicines. One of the things that is important to look at from that standpoint is kind of where we're positioned globally. The industry has fractionation capabilities in the United States, it has fractionation capabilities in Europe, we have plasma collection capabilities in the United States and in Europe as well. Those capabilities are expanding. You've heard about Canada, you've heard about Egypt and Iran, and a lot of other places around the world as well. There is capacity in China, there is capacity in South Korea, capacity in Japan, capacity in Australia. Places where we can utilize that capacity as a global industry to ensure the greatest access to patients despite whatever geopolitical circumstances or tariffs may exist. We think that tariffs may be something that comes down the road. We hope that they are not, and it is incumbent upon us to ensure that any tariffs or any other geopolitical situations do not affect our ability to provide access to these life-saving medicines. And how do we do that? We do that through education. Education, education. Education about the differences of our products, education about how special these products are, education about what would happen if the supply chain was interrupted. And I think that is really where we have to key on, and that is the idea of educating regulators, educating government officials, educating the people who make decisions that really don't know what those decisions are based upon. And we do that in conjunction and in alliance with patient advocates, and the patient voice is very, very important in ensuring that that goes forward.
Couldn't agree more with that as well. Margaret, your thoughts?
Just to follow up on what David said about education there, I think collaboration is very important amongst stakeholders as well. Yesterday, Nancy DeSalvo asked us to kind of keep our focus on patient access to these therapies, and it was something that was also in my mind. And I think in times of uncertainty, it's incumbent upon us to collaborate with stakeholders, that's with patient organisations, with policymakers, with regulators, and with our industry colleagues, because there are risks to a global supply chain, and we need to do everything we can to mitigate those risks to ensure the patients have access to our therapies. David also mentioned Paul Rosenthal yesterday when he was talking about the tariffs, and I was struck by the point that we're not talking here about steel or aluminium or even traditional pharmaceuticals, we're talking about a very unique product here whose raw material is plasma that comes from the generosity of plasma donors. And they're life-saving and they're life-altering. And I think if we collaborate together, educate, share our perspectives, then we will work together to find creative solutions in those times of volatility. And I think even the example of the conference today and yesterday, that shows how great an opportunity it is when we have an opportunity to come together, collaborate and to discuss. And if we come together with an open mind and a willingness to work together, I think we can achieve great things.
Dave, my next question is for you. You have obviously seen a lot of change over many, many years. We won't say exactly how many in the plasma industry. In your opinion, what has been the key factor in growing the trust in our products, credibility? Certainly we collaborate with patient organizations very closely, but that would not be possible without trust.
Well, trust and credibility are not something that should just be taken for granted. They have to be earned. To look at it from a historical standpoint, roughly 45 years ago, the patient community that utilized our products suffered great tragedies. And out of that, we came and delivered a promise that that would never happen again. And we have to demonstrate. Our words are hollow unless we can put actions behind it. And the way that we have done that, lots of that has come from PPTA and collaboration by industry representatives with PPTA in particular. We put together alliances with our stakeholders, alliances with our patients, communities and patient advocates to ensure that their voices are heard, not just heard by us, but heard by regulators and government officials and but they have to be heard and be part of our story as well as industry. We cannot do what we want to do just because we think it's the right thing. We have to listen to our patients, earn their trust, earn their credibility, and do the responsible thing. There are lots of things that we can look at as far as what we have done to perhaps earn that trust. One of the things is that we don't just look at our products and come up with a single solution on how to make them safe. We have to make them safe, pure, and potent. And quality and safety are the most important things in delivering these types of products. It goes directly into your vein, as you all know. And what we have done is we've looked at viral inactivation, we look at viral partitioning, we look at filtration, and we have redundancy after redundancy and after redundancy to ensure the safety of these products. But they can only be as safe as technology allows. So we have to be truly vigilant in how we look in the future. We have a very strong pathogen safety committee at PPTA that works in conjunction with industry to ensure that viruses down the road, pathogens down the road are capable of being destroyed by our products and that they remain safe. And that's very, very important to us. We don't just look at standards and say we will comply with the standards that the regulators say that we need to comply with. Those are minimum standards. PPTA continuously looks at voluntary standards to ensure that we are raising the bar and further raising the bar to ensure that any potential, and we talked about the unknown with regard to tariffs, any potential unknown is met to ensure the safety and quality of our drugs.
Thank you, Dave. Ugo, you joined Kedrion at a time when the company was transitioning from its historic roots and embarking on a major period of change. What challenges do you face leading and guiding a global organization through a significant period of growth?
Not an easy question. No, but so basically, let's start from where we were. We were two companies, to some extent very similar, because they were both involved in the plasma industry, but also very different. And also the differences were also driven by the fact that they were behind the two legacy companies. There was a long history. We were not talking about young companies. They are very big companies which are on the market and serving patients for hundreds of years, not just a few decades. So therefore there were really very important differences from the cultural perspective. So Of course, then we were focusing and we focused on organization transformation, optimization of our portfolio, and then define the right strategy for a global expansion. But what we felt was before doing it, we needed to give priority to something different. And I take the example of many of us probably, we have seen in our sector in life science a number of mergers in the past between companies. And when they failed, they never failed because of a wrong strategy. But they failed because of a lack of cultural integration. And this is where we decided to start and to give priority when we started our journey with the new Kedrion. Of course, we worked at first to build a common set of principles, for example, our way of working. What was the need, how did you want really to work together, to set common objectives, and also to, above all, also to build trust, but on top of that, to build our new core set of values. And we did it involving our people from the bottom. We involved hundreds of our people within our organization in every layers of the organization. And we came out with 5 key distinctive principles, which are today the set of values that we decided to implement every day in whatever we do in our working life. And also, I would say, is a set of values which are really relevant also in our private life. Some of them are maybe common in different ways in many companies. When we talk about teamwork, together as one, or sustainable impact, or integrity, of course this is something. But there are 2 values coming from our people which are, in my view, are very distinctive from the others and are differentiating Kedrion today from many other companies. One is care, because care takes us to people, not only to patients. And this is the way we want to care about not only our people, the patients, the family, and the environment where we operate, the community where we are. So caring is one of the distinctive elements. The other one is courage. And again, we wanted to be different. You know, to some extent, we applied a sort of marketing strategy. One of the key rules in marketing is to differentiate. And we took 2 core values we really believe that we were able to differentiate. And courage is also something which takes us to the concept of innovation, to take risks, to accept that if we want to generate innovation, to develop something new, we need sometimes to take risks and also to have the courage to make mistakes. To make mistakes is not wrong. We have to push and to build an organization where to make mistakes is not an issue. But it is something which can drive really the generation of innovation. Because innovation is not invention. Invention usually is driven by one single person, by a genius, and it happens time to time. Innovation is a way of working, are incremental steps that every day you put in place, trying to do something different. And it is, of course, in developing new products, developing new solutions, but also developing new way of working together in an agile way, in a transparent and in an organization where trust really is at the base of everything. And then this is where we are all committed today with more than 5,000 people in building and transforming the Kedrion of the past in the new Kedrion of today.
Courage and caring. Thank you. Margaret, you have a very unique perspective within Takeda's leadership team overseeing regions. Let's talk about that for a moment. Tell us about exactly what regions you oversee.
Thanks, Anita. Okay, so to provide a little bit of context, my role spans between what happens at a country level in Takeda and what happens within the global team. So I work very closely with global medical, global commercial, global regulatory teams, and I also work very closely with our in-country teams across Europe, Canada, and growth and emerging markets. So it's quite a wide span across the globe. And I think that gives me a perspective about regulatory harmonization as an example, because I can see that we have a global manufacturing supply chain,
yes,
that we have, and it's really important that as our medicines, as our intermediary products, and as our finished products, and plasma as a raw material, as all of those cross borders between countries and across continents, regulatory harmonization does ease that path. And as an example, yesterday, I mean, we talked quite a bit about the Critical Medicines Act as an example, and how regulators are trying to ensure that patients have access to critical medicines. And I think where there's greater cooperation and harmonisation between regulatory authorities, that can help to prevent shortages of critical medicines. It's important that regulators have a common understanding of, example, the root causes of maybe shortages of PDMPs, that being a lack of source plasma. And I think it's also important that these regulatory policies consider the specifics of certain therapy areas and how there shouldn't be necessarily a one-size-fits-all policy. So as an example, when it comes to plasma-derived medicinal products, stockpiling may not be effective in helping to address shortages of products. And if one individual national authority takes a particular individualistic approach to stockpiling, that may actually also cause additional problems in other countries. So I think regulation and harmonisation across policies and legislation can help to address some of the challenges.
And as you said, one size doesn't fit all. You must recognize our unique source, our unique global supply chain, and the patients we serve.
Yeah.
Let's talk about innovation and what that means to each of you, because we are often seen as an established, long-term industry with products that have been on the market for many, many years. What does innovation look like? Dave, you want to kick us off? What does it mean to you?
I've been asked many times, or been told many times, that this is a mature industry. And I've always said that that's not true. We are still in our infancy. You heard yesterday from the scientists that put up some of the statistics, and they said that there are as many as 3,000 individual proteins, and we've only been able to develop a dozen or so into therapies because we are just now understanding the human proteome. I can tell you that in reality now we've been able to identify using state-of-the-art, or actually cutting-edge capabilities, that there are as many as 20,000 or more proteins that flow through plasma. Some of them in very minimal quantities, but they all have some reason to be there, and they all have some effect on the body. And whether they are used individually through augmentation or inhibition or some other signaling capabilities, or in combination with others, they have some effect on the body. And we are at an unusual age right now. We're at the level of molecularization of the human proteome, molecularization of plasma. And frankly, there's a lot of things that are opening up through AI and others to be able to examine on an individual protein basis or combination of those proteins what additional therapeutics, whether they're actual therapeutics to modulate disease, or whether they're new biomarkers and diagnostic tools to be able to identify disease in advance or much earlier when it can be treated. So there is a whole wealth and additional treasure to mine, so to speak. And we have a dozen or so, and over the next years, I think that we will quadruple that, or even extend it even much further. It will help plasma economics. It will help us be able to increase our yields of our products, and it will help us increase the personalization of medicine to individual diseases, and make those medicines more available and accessible to more patients around the world.
That's an exciting perspective. Ugo, do you want to build on that?
Yes, I first of all, I share Dave's opinion about the maturity of our industry. We are not mature at all. I believe that our industry is really at the beginning of a very important evolution. I don't like the word transformation when we say it, but our industry is going really to evolve following all the development in science, because at the end of the day, we are also driven by the advancement in medicine and science. So there are two concepts maybe to complement what Dave said, because and not try not to repeat because I shared all of what he said. One is, to some extent, we have to go away from the concept of developing product. We have to develop solutions to manage diseases. And in our case, these solutions have to save lives and to give the opportunity to people to live a normal life. And when we talk about solution, it is not just the treatment by itself, but we need to develop solutions that can help families, healthcare providers. Because when we talk about rare diseases, ultra-rare conditions, we are talking about only a few hundreds of patients maybe in one country. They have to travel hundreds of kilometers to go to a center to be treated. There is a huge burden for the families. So frequency of administration, way of administration, convenience of administration is something which is part of the solution, is the component. Of course, the product is going to remain the most important one, but we need to really to bring and to see it in a more holistic way. Then, I apologize, I'm not a scientist of background, but maybe I'll try. I see in our industry two main big streams. One is the stream of immunodeficiencies, and the other one is usually in autoimmune disorders. When we talk about immunodeficiencies, the complexity that there is behind with multifactorial origin and so on, I believe that the plasma-derived therapies will remain the golden standard also in the future. So the generation of innovation in this area will be driven, as we said, as we heard, by improving the processes, improving the yields, the time of production, and maybe reduce also accelerating the access. On the other hand, I believe that also in this area we will have to work with a more targeted and personalized approach, in focusing also in the area of immunodeficiency to some specific diseases, and to develop drugs with clinical trials targeted and personalized to specific target populations and patients. The area of autoimmune disorders, I see it as a bit different in the future. In the area of autoimmune disorders, there is, of course, in most of the time, there is a genetic condition which has changed, which is the cause of it. So this is an area where we will see it. We are seeing already the impact of new technologies. Monoclonal antibodies, in the future CAR-T. We know, I know that there are already data, for example, of allogenic CAR-T, not autologous, allogenic CAR-T which are entering phase 2 in myasthenia gravis and so on. So the consequence of it for our industry is that we will have also to evolve in building molecular know-how, in developing combination therapies for treating this kind of autoimmune disorder. So this is the reason, because I see it as really an evolution, an important evolution of our industry toward really a more science-driven and personalized and targeted development of solutions to treat the diseases which are today part of our plasma industry.
Part of the trend of personalized medicine. Margaret, please weigh in about innovation.
I think I have two thoughts on this topic, actually. One is that I actually feel that we're blessed within this industry, that we have innovative products coming to market, but actually we've got products that have been around for decades and are still life-altering and saving patients' lives. And there's treatments within our industry that are as old as I am, if not, and I'm a 70s baby, so they have been around for quite some time. And so there's that element of our industry along with innovation. And I think one area I'd like to touch on in terms of innovation is not just for the access to innovative therapies for patients, but I think we've been very good as an industry as well in terms of how we can innovate in areas that look at donor safety and donor health as well. And having voluntary standards such as IQPP and CDCS are really important. And I think now there's innovation coming in this space as well. Example, the EU SOHO regulation. It's an opportunity for us to reinforce our commitment to donor health and to donor safety, and to continue to innovate in that area. One example would be the nationally interconnected registries for donors as well. So I think we can do a lot in this space, not only on the donation side, but also obviously on the medicinal side as well.
Obviously, when we talk about the need for more plasma, this is plasma donation collection. we need to use a lot of single-use plastics because of the need for sterility, safety, to your point. What about sustainability? That is another area that many corporations are feeling pressure to try to do more, even within the constraints of whatever their business model might be. Margaret, any thoughts on how we can innovate when it comes to sustainability? And then I will open it up to our other panelists as well.
I think sustainability has to be a focus for us. Anita, you mentioned there that, you know, plastics are an integral part of the entire donation to administration of our medicines.
Yes.
But we're also in the business of human health, and we need to consider the planet, because a healthy planet is obviously going to help to support a healthy population as well. So finding ways to recycle plastic is really important. I don't want to just focus on maybe something in particular that Takeda is doing here, but I know as an industry and my colleagues here, we're all focused on trying to find a sustainable solution to recycling plastics. And I think we're making good progress in that. And it's important that we do divert landfill and biohazardous plastic every year. So I think we are focused on that as an industry, and I think it's good to see.
Any additional thoughts on that when we discuss sustainability and the plasma industry?
I think it's something that, frankly, as an industry, as an association, we can be very proud of the efforts that we've made along the lines of sustainability. Frankly, I think that all of the members of PPTA at the industrial level are placed quite high on the sustainability indexes that are given worldwide. I know one of our members is #1 in the pharmaceutical sector for sustainability on the Dow Jones Sustainability Index. So we're making efforts, but again, unless we're able to live up to the promises we make, you know, saying we're going to be carbon free by 2030 or whatever the date is, unless we're able to live up and have actions follow behind that, they're hollow words. And I think that, again, we can be proud of the efforts that this industry has made in recycling materials, recycling alcohol that is used in the manufacture of these products, and a lot of other things, and something moving forward.
So I do see, when I look out there, a lot of emerging leaders. So what would each of you say to those leaders who may be sitting up here someday about what it takes to succeed, to stay passionate, to stay committed and energized about the life-saving work that we do? Ugo, why don't you kick us off?
First, when we talk about a new generation of leaders, I believe that this is a treasure that we have in our hands. My experience when I had to work with young generation has always been extremely positive, because the freshness, the mindset, the freshness that they bring to us is really something which can feed really also ourselves. So having said that, of course, we need to build the right environment where, you know, young generation can develop also with the help of senior people. So, and definitely pairing really the youngs, we can bring really new ideas, new principles, new way of working also, and to test them with the experience of the senior people. So coaching, mentorship, provide opportunities for a continuous learning. But there are two elements again which I love a lot when I speak and we talk about the next generation of leaders. We have to develop a culture where the people can make mistakes, and then back to a point I made with the concept of courage. Because only the young generation are really the one who can really try to bring something, and also they have to allow to make mistakes, and we have not to penalize them. And the second is also we have to recognize and reward the contribution of them, to give visibility, to expose them to also to opportunity like this event. So these are wonderful opportunities for young generation to show, to present, and to gain visibility in front of everybody. So again, recognize and reward the contributions, and also develop a culture where they have not to be afraid to bring new ideas and contribution, and also to be allowed to make mistakes.
Margaret, what do you tell members of your team or emerging leaders in the very critical work you do?
I think I try to share my passion for this industry and the sense of purpose that I've always had from it. And I will never forget a moment where I heard from a HAE patient who stood on a stage like this, like many years ago. She described her diagnostic odyssey in trying to get a diagnosis for HAE. She suffered from abdominal HAE attacks, very often turned up at the emergency department. At one point was referred to a psychiatrist because clinicians did not believe that she had a real illness. And she spoke about how different it was for her daughter to be diagnosed and to receive treatment. And she stood on the stage and she looked out to an audience of pharmaceutical company members, and she said, so if you ever go to work and you have a bad day, always remember that what you do matters, and it matters to people like me. And that's something that I try to share with people that I work with, that what we do does matter to individual patients. And I would hope to see kind of that passion instilled in younger leaders as well, because I think we would probably like to think that we've done quite a bit to improve access to medicines, to have the value of our therapies recognised by payers and by authorities. But there are many countries around the world where that access is not so good, or that value is not fully recognised. And I think there's a lot of work still to be done by our younger leaders as well to bring that baton forward.
Absolutely. Dave?
I'll echo what Margaret and Ugo have said about passion for what we do. It brings to my mind the fact that as young individuals, all the way through as old as I am, being proud of going to the office every single day because we are proud of what we do. We have a program at Grifols, and I know that the other companies, members of PPTA, have similar programs where we have relationships with patient organizations. We have patients come in to the factory, have patients come into, we have a museum and they tour our museum. And the passion that comes from those meetings, the fact that an individual, a technician in a manufacturing facility who is making these products can connect with a patient who's using those products is something that frankly is quite unsettling at times, because it brings a tear to your eye, and it gives people basically an understanding that what they are doing makes a difference, a true difference. And so going into the office every day and being proud of what you're doing, and proud for patients, proud for donors, ensuring that the donors are treated well. We will not harm a donor to save a patient, frankly. It's very, very important. We have a lot of programs for donor health, and understanding how all of these things come together. And again, it comes down to passion for what we do, being proud when you go in. And if you lose that, perhaps you shouldn't be going in.
Okay, words of wisdom. Ugo, we did talk about AI. I mean, what is the potential there? I know some people see it as just such great opportunity. Others view it with some trepidation. How do you see AI?
You're right, Anita. And today I would say if there are two topics which are on top of the agenda of everybody, not only in our industry but everywhere, are artificial intelligence and cybersecurity. Because to some extent they are also a bit connected.
Absolutely.
And of course there are, in the game, there are two streams of thinking, one which are, a stream which are very positive, and the other one they see the risk. Of course there are some risks behind the a wrong usage of artificial intelligence, but we cannot deny that this is really a transformational force, which is going to change forever our life, not only our business. And I see, if we will be able to really to use, and this is one principle, it's not artificial intelligence which has to drive us, but we have to drive artificial intelligence using it in the way we want to use it. And there are already a number. It can, the transformative force can be in every area of our industry. Let's talk, for example, in R&D, in discovery. We can accelerate the discovery and the generation of new compounds, but also the impact of artificial intelligence could reduce or even eliminate, for example, animal testing. Developing mathematical model really to go and maybe to go very quickly to reduce the time we need to enter in clinical development. When we talk about clinical development, with the analysis of millions of data, we can shorten the time of clinical trials, we can have a faster patient's enrollment, and maybe we can develop endpoints, primary endpoints, and more targeted clinical trials, also reducing the number of patients to be enrolled for a clinical trial. So again, saving times, saving cost, and accelerating the development of access. But we can talk about also production. We can optimize the real-time monitoring of the batches production and also the automation of batch management. We can talk about supply chain, where we can make a much more accurate forecast of demand and also to reduce the supply chain. I can make example of everything. For example, the development of vaccine during COVID. Artificial intelligence was key, generative artificial intelligence was key in accelerating the development of vaccine. And maybe I close with something which is again to be really differentiating from the others and specific for us. We have data of hundreds of millions of donors. With artificial intelligence, we could analyze the single genetic profile of every single donor, and maybe also to understand if this donor can develop a specific diseases in the future. To work also on a predictive way, on a preventive way, not predictive, to predict the evolution of some diseases and also to work on preventing some of them. So again, of course, there are some question marks, there are some, we are afraid to some extent, but I believe that if we, as people, and again it's a matter of people, we will be able really to use artificial intelligence in the right way. The positive transformational force driven by artificial intelligence is huge.
I know we're out of time, but one more question came in that I think is important, that takes the conversation back to Europe. Margaret, the societal benefits of our medicines, oftentimes payers, policymakers, health systems look at them and say, these are very expensive medicines. These need to be administered, taken they're not a cure. They are life-saving, but it's not one and done. Thoughts on how we help policymakers, and I think this applies to so many therapies out there, looking at societal benefits versus looking at medicines in a more transactional way. And then I'll invite the other panelists to follow up quickly before we close.
Thanks, Anita, for the question. I think it's a really important topic because we talked earlier about volatility in the environment, and healthcare systems we know are facing unprecedented strain. There's rising healthcare demands from our populations. There's escalating costs. Many hospitals are overcrowded. And all of these elements can impact patient care. And potentially it's going to become worse with stagnant healthcare budgets and perhaps more spending on defence budgets in the future as well. But I think there are examples of innovative healthcare models out there that can minimise hospital burden and actually provide choice and options to patients. And one of those elements is being able to have healthcare treatments at home. And many of our plasma-derived medicinal products actually can be used by patients at home.
Absolutely, and that's innovation as well.
It is, and I think, what it does in reality is it provides choice for patients, but it also alleviates a burden on healthcare systems. It can reduce the direct costs associated with infusions in hospital. It can free up capacity if patients have their treatment at home. And in many cases, it allows patients and caregivers to have additional time, either for activities that they choose to do, or perhaps to go back to work or to education as well. And that's I see it as a win-win-win, because there's a win for patients, there's a win for healthcare authorities and for healthcare professionals, and then as a society there's a win for society as a whole as well. So I think it's great to see that advancing and to see that more authorities are supporting healthcare treatments at home. And I think that with us working together with payers and with authorities, then we can agree on what that value of the medicine is in terms of being able to deliver that treatment at home.
That's right, the societal value. Any closing thoughts? I know we're just a little bit over, but gentlemen, any thoughts on the discussion here?
Sure. I don't know if I could say it any better, Margaret. I will add just one thing, and something that oftentimes is missing when people evaluate the cost of these medicines is the benefit that the individuals who receive these medicines give back to society. And the cost of not treating people is much more, both from a societal basis and from a productivity basis, than the cost of these medicines. It's very important to understand the benefit that the patients give when they are able to be productive.
And it's something we have to, when we're educating, we need to be bringing that to the forefront with policymakers. Final words, Ugo.
To me, I mean, just to complement is, when we see a patient affected by a disease, and then this patient is able to go to a normal life and to a productive life, this is the best example of what we do and the value that we bring to not only to a patient but to a society and to the environment and to the people in general.
It is inspiring. Thank you all.
Thank you, Anita.